Hey, what's going on, everyone? And welcome to episode 38 of the Alec Walt Show. I'm your host, Alec Walt, alongside another very special guest. And today, we're going to talk about the Portland Trailblazers. The Trailblazers are led by Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum, a pretty active offseason. We're going to talk about everything with the Trailblazers right now with the voice of the team, Travis Demers. Travis, thank you very much for joining me today, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for thinking of me.
No problem. So the Trailblazers, like I mentioned, led by Damian Lillard, another absolutely elite season last year, second in points and assists per game. You know, he's entering his early 30s. Just talk about how he continues to expand and grow his game in the NBA.
You know, it's amazing because every year, we talk about it, that how can Dame be better than he was last year? And for the last 3 or 4 years, he finds a way to do it. What that extra gear is that he has, the 60-point games. He had the 55 in the playoff game against Denver. Unfortunately, that wasn't a win, but just the things that he continues to do, the shots he makes, getting to the rim, and hopefully adding to that on the defensive end this year. It's just every year there's another gear that he somehow finds, and I don't know how he does it.
With this, he's one of the best players in the league. A lot of players like to move around in this league. It's not uncommon for a star to switch teams multiple times throughout his NBA career. Damian's remained in Portland his entire career. What does it mean for this team in this city to have someone so loyal to winning in the city of Portland?
It's important because Portland is not exactly based on history, right? Portland is not a free agent destination. If you look at the best free agents that have ever come to Portland, you consider Norman Powell in that. Is it Brian Grant? There haven't been a ton of big-time free agents. So to have somebody who has been loyal to Portland now for a decade, who wants to be in Portland, who ingrains himself into the community and does things for the community that he does, Blazers fans have really put him on a pedestal, and deservedly so. The things that he brings on and off the floor for a city like Portland that doesn't have a Major League Baseball team or NFL team or NHL team, he's as big as it can get in Portland.
Obviously, with all this talent, when they were eliminated from the first round of the playoffs, the trade rumors just exploded. Obviously, he shut them down. But what are your thoughts on the fact that they just continued to come back and surround Lillard in every offseason, the last couple of offseasons with the Blazers?
Well, I think some of that is, based on the market, right? And, of course, on our show, we talk about that a lot, and fans have input, and we see the trade rumors all the time. Well, you got to trade this guy for that guy. And you've got to do this and you've got to do that. I thought before last season, adding Robert Covington was huge, right? So what's the next thing? Is it adding another? Is it adding a superstar level piece? And if it is, how do you do that? Well, there aren't exactly a lot of tradable assets right now. If you're looking at contracts and things like that, really CJ McCollum is the biggest contract / talent they have to move if they were going to go try and get another superstar. A lot of fans have talked about Ben Simmons or Pascal Siakam. If those guys are available, and does it make sense for the other side? Well, all the reports are out of Philadelphia that they don't want CJ, they want Dame. Well, too bad you're not getting him, right? And if it was Siakam, well, does CJ fit there with the big money guards that they have now in Toronto? And the answer is probably no. So there are very few guys that are instant game changers like that are available, where it fits for both sides. And I think that's where things can get a little muddy sometimes, because it's really easy to say, hey, Neil O'Shea, go make a big move. But when it comes down to it, what moves are available? I thought the Norman Powell move at the trade deadline last year was big, because it sounded like they didn't really have much of an intention to bring back Gary Trent Jr. at $20+ million, what he ended up getting in Toronto. And you get somebody who is a better defender, who has won a championship, who has that pedigree, and can shoot and get to the rim. So I think it's, little by little, you've got to do what you've got to do. And I think they've done that, but fans want to see that big splash, and it just hasn't happened.
So I'm happy you brought up CJ McCollum's name, because even though we didn't see a full season from him last year, his 23.1 points per game was a career high. 6 consecutive seasons of averaging 20 or more points per game. Just talk about how him and Dame complement each other so well and have been so dominant as a backcourt duo these last couple of seasons.
Yeah, offensively, they're terrific together. And, one of the things that, if we're continuing to talk about upgrades and things like that fans have talked about is, getting a backup point guard. Well, they've needed more help in the front court in the last couple of years, so they've gone off and done that. And, I don't know what Chauncey Billups is going to do, but Terry Stotts would stagger the minutes between Dame and CJ. And when Dame was out, a lot of times CJ McCollum will play the point guard. He is versatile. Dame is versatile. They're both, 6'3"-ish, so they're a little undersized, but they can score. CJ is one of the best mid-range shooters in the NBA. He can get to spots. He can shoot from just about anywhere, and Dame can do a number of different things offensively. And because they've played together for as long as they have, they know where each other is going to be on the floor. And having that continuity together offensively and being able to shoot and create and do those kinds of things, it's made them deadly together offensively.
So you mentioned Terry Stotts. The Blazers moved on from him this offseason. Do you think it was the right time to move on from Stotts as the head coach?
It's tough because they did have a lot of success under Terry Stotts. They went to the playoffs 8 straight years, longest streak in the NBA. They got to a Western Conference final for the first time since 2001. They did some really good things. And personally, I had a really good relationship with Terry Stotts. I like him a lot. But sometimes you need a new voice. Sometimes you need some, a different invigoration of whatever the message is. And I think it was probably the right time for that, especially if you're going to go in the direction of bringing in someone who has a defensive pedigree like Chauncey Billups does.
So do you think that was the right hire?
I do. And look, if you were going to go get somebody that was that's been a head coach before, who are the other options, right? The other options were probably Mike D'Antoni. He is a Hall of Fame coach. He is a phenomenal coach. But I think Chauncey Billups, even though he doesn't have the experience as a head coach, with what his message is and with his age, he's a young guy. He's 44 years old. It's not that long since he was in the league. I think he's going to be able to relate to the players and brings in an instant credibility and an instant respect because the players remember what he did in the finals.
So another name I haven't mentioned yet is Joseph Nurkic, who we haven't really seen on the court that much these last 2 seasons for the Trailblazers due to injury. What's his health status heading into the upcoming season, and how big of an X factor is Nurkic's health?
It's a major factor. I think it's one of the most important factors on this team because, look, Nurk missed 35 games last year with injury and then took a little bit of time to get back to himself once he was back in the lineup. He missed pretty much the entire season the year before that after breaking his leg in March of 2019 and that gruesome injury against Brooklyn. And, yeah, they got to a Western Conference final without him, but we saw the difference defensively in the series against Denver when he fouled out. He fouled out in 3 of the 6 games after not fouling out once the entire year, and it was a different defensive team. They were, as the team for the season, they had the second worst defensive rating in the league. But when they had their full healthy starting lineup after the trade for Norman Powell, they had the 4th best net rating in the league, and they were around 17, 18 in defensive rating. He is such a factor defensively, and it's not because he's a great shot blocker, but the things that he does defensively, knowing where he's supposed to be, deflecting shots, making things difficult in the middle for drivers, for other bigs. He's just really important for everything that they do defensively.
So in free agency this offseason, you guys signed names like Ben Mclemore, Tony Snell, and Cody Zeller. Do you think either of those 3 could have a significant role, or I don't know how significant, they're probably more bench players, but have a role on this team next year?
Yeah, I think Cody Zeller is going to have a big role because, like we talked about, Nurk has had 1 season with the Trailblazers where he's been fully healthy. And Cody Zeller can still play. He can still play on the defensive end, and it's funny, from that draft, all from the 2013 draft, all first-round picks, and 3 of those guys were top 10 picks. And 3 of them now are going to be coming off the bench. And I think Zeller is going to have a role. What that is, I don't know. Is it 18 minutes a night? Is it 22 minutes a night? He is going to have a role. Tony Snell is a good defender, and he can shoot. So I think he's going to have a key rotation role off the bench. But one of those guys that I'm not sure what his role is going to be is Ben Mclemore. Right? He's never quite lived up to that number 7 overall pick status. Decent offensive player. He's a decent shooter. Doesn't bring a whole lot on the defensive end. So I think he's going to be more of an end of rotation backcourt guy. And I don't know exactly what that looks like yet.
So over the last couple drafts, you guys have drafted names like Anfernee Simons, Nasir Little. How do you see them fitting into the rotation if they do next year with the Blazers?
Well, Anfernee Simons is key, right? Because they don't have, a ton. They have a lot of guards, but they don't have a lot of guards with, high-level experience. And down the stretch of the season, the last month and into the playoffs, Anfernee Simons was a big part of the rotation. He actually led the team in three-point shooting last year. And he's very athletic. Obviously, we saw him win the slam dunk contest. He can get to the rim. He's a little bit better defender, but he's still a really young guy. So I think his development is critical. And then Nasir Little, he got off to a slow start last year. He missed the first few weeks of the season. He had COVID. He lost 20 pounds, and he wasn't himself. But he had some big games. He had a 30-point game against Milwaukee. He was, shot about 36% from three. He can play defense. And he's a really good rebounder who brings a lot of energy. So if he takes another leap in year three, that's really the way the Blazers have to do it, is build from within their draft picks. And between Dame and CJ, Nurk wasn't a draft pick, but he was a guy that found his way on the outside of the Nuggets rotation, and they got him in a deal with a first-round draft pick for Mason Plumlee, who was going to leave in free agency anyway, and he's developed. So if Nasir Little and Anfernee Simons take another steps, Little in year three, Simons in year four, those are really important factors for the development of this team.
What do you think the ceiling is for the Blazers heading into next year? Say they do get a full healthy season out of McCollum and Nurkic. Where do you think this team can go?
It's tough because the West is so deep, right? And you look at the top teams in the West. Is Anthony Davis going to be healthy? Is LeBron James going to be healthy? Is Kawhi Leonard going to play this year? What are the Clippers going to look like? Jamal Murray going to be okay at some point? Is he going to play at some point this year? Can Phoenix build off what they did last year? Is Utah going to be great again? And just the list goes on. And we're not even talking about Dallas at that point, or Memphis, or New Orleans. The West is just so deep, and I think you can look at the top of the West and say the Lakers are the favorite. Right? And then is it Utah? Who else is it? But if the Blazers stay healthy, I think they have the ability to be a top four seed in the Western Conference. And if everything breaks right, they could win a playoff series or two. And they believe they're a championship. We just haven't seen them fully healthy enough to be able to believe that yet. But I think Neil O'Shea is, again, going to be active at the trade deadline because he always is. And maybe they bring in that missing piece in January or February.
Travis, before we let you go, man, how can our listeners here keep in touch with you on social media and listen to some of your shows or podcasts?
Yeah, so on Twitter, you can find me at Travis Demers. That's Demers. Same thing on Instagram and I think Facebook, too. And then I do a show weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m. Pacific on the Blazers flagship station, 620 Rip City Radio. You can find that on the iHeartRadio app.
Awesome. Well, Travis, thank you very much for joining me on a podcast.
Anytime, Alec. I always appreciate the invite. Thank you.
All right. Well, that's me for this episode of the Alec Walt Show. I'm Alec Walt alongside Travis Demers. What do you think of the Portland Trail Blazers offseason? Feel free to comment that below. Also, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Down the Block Sports for more of my exclusive content. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and we will see you very soon.